What if your king told you he was a god, and if you didn't believe him, you'd be killed? This isn't a story from a fantasy novel or a movie. It happened. A real king, from real history, forced people to bow to him like he was a god. He didn't ask for loyalty. He demanded worship. And if you refused, if you doubted, hesitated, or even stayed silent, you were punished. Some people were beaten. Some were made to disappear. Others were executed in public, as a warning to everyone else. No trial. No second chances. Only fear. But who was this man? Why did he believe he was more than a king? And how did he convince an entire nation to follow him like a god? This story is not well known. In fact, much of it was buried. After his death, the rulers who came next tried to erase him from history. They destroyed his statues. They tore down his temples. They even removed his name from the list of kings. It was as if he had never lived. But history always leaves behind clues. Letters, stones, ruins, and whispers. In this video, we will follow those clues. We'll uncover the rise of a king whose hunger for power turned into something far darker. We'll explore how he used fear, religion, and control to silence a nation. And most of all, we'll expose the truth that history tried to forget. Stay with me until the end, and you'll hear a final, hidden detail, one that most people never learn. A truth that changes how we see him, and how we see power itself. This is a story you've never heard before, and once you do, you won't forget it. To understand this strange and terrifying king, we have to go back more than 3,000 years. Back to a time when Egypt was one of the richest and most powerful places in the world. The land was full of great temples, tall statues, and golden tombs. Pharaohs ruled like gods, and people believed their king was chosen by the heavens. Egypt had many gods, over 1,000 of them. Some were kind. Some were fierce. Each had their own temples, priests, and followers. This mix of religion and royalty had kept Egypt strong for centuries. But then, something changed. A new pharaoh came to power, and he was not like the others. His name at birth was Amenhotep IV. He was the son of a mighty ruler, Amenhotep III, who had built grand cities and lived in luxury. People thought Amenhotep IV would continue his father's path. But early in his rule, he showed signs of being different. Very different. At first, the change was slow. He began focusing on one god in particular, Aten, the sun disk. Aten wasn't a new god, but he had never been the most important one. Egypt's main god at the time was a moon, worshipped by powerful priests and thousands of citizens. But Amenhotep IV didn't just like Aten. He believed Aten was the only true god. All the others, he said, were false. He even claimed that only he, the pharaoh, could understand Aten's will. This was something no other Egyptian ruler had done. This belief wasn't just religious, it was political. By raising Aten and ignoring the others, he took power away from the priests, who had grown rich and strong under the old system. Now, their temples were closing. Their statues were being destroyed. Their voices were being silenced. Within just 5 years of becoming king, Amenhotep IV changed his name to Akhenaten, which means servant of Aten. It was more than a name. It was a message to the world. He now served a god of his own choosing, not the gods of his ancestors. But Akhenaten didn't stop there. He left the capital city of Thebes, where pharaohs had ruled for generations, and built a brand new city in the desert. He called it Akhenaten, meaning the horizon of the Aten. This was where he would rule, far from the old temples, the old gods, and the old ways. This city was built quickly. Homes, palaces, and temples rose from the sand. Everything was dedicated to Aten. The sun shined on every wall, every statue, every thought. People were forced to move there. Priests of Aten were placed in charge. The air was hot, the rules were strict, and the king was watching. In this strange new world, Akhenaten began to change. He spoke less about being a king and more about being a messenger of God. Or perhaps, something even more powerful. Some say he started to believe he was Aten, that he was the living sun, the god in human form. Whether or not that's true, one thing is certain. Akhenaten's Egypt was no longer a place of peace and balance. It had become a kingdom ruled by one god, one city, and one man. And for those who refused to follow, the future would grow dark. Before he became a god in his own eyes, He was just a prince. Amenhotep IV was born into power. His father, Amenhotep III, was one of Egypt's greatest rulers. Under his reign, the country was rich, calm, and full of grand temples. The people were happy, the army was strong, and the priests of Amun had more wealth than ever before. As a boy, Amenhotep IV lived in luxury. He had servants, tutors, and everything a royal child could want. But something about him was off. He didn't seem interested in war or politics like other future kings. He didn't train with soldiers or spend much time in the courts. Instead, he kept to himself. He liked quiet. He liked the sun. He watched it rise. He watched it fall. Some say he even prayed to it alone as a child, whispering things no one else could hear. When he finally became king, likely still in his teens, his early rule looked normal from the outside. He married a beautiful and intelligent woman named Nefertiti, and together they appeared in ceremonies and gave gifts to temples. For a short while, everything looked peaceful. But something inside him was changing. He began to ignore the temples of Amun. He gave less to the priests. He started to talk about Aten, a lesser-known sun god who appeared as a flat golden disc with rays that ended in hands. To most Egyptians, Aten was just one of many gods. But to Amenhotep IV, Aten was everything. In his 5th year as king, he made a shocking move. He changed his name to Akhenaten. The name meant servant of the sun disk. It was a public rejection of the old gods, and a signal that his path would be different. At the same time, he announced the building of a brand new capital, Akhenaten. He wanted a clean start, a holy city that belonged only to him and his god. Far from the old capitals, Akhenaten rose in the desert like a dream, glowing under the harsh sun. But something strange happened in this city. The art changed. Before Akhenaten, pharaohs were shown as strong and godlike. Their muscles were firm. Their faces were proud. But now, statues and paintings showed Akhenaten with a long neck, soft body, curved stomach, wide hips, and narrow face. Some even showed him with both male and female features. People didn't understand it. Was it illness? Was it a new style? Or was he trying to show himself as something more than human? Many now believe Akhenaten wanted to look like Aten, a being without shape, without gender, beyond human rules. In this way, he presented himself as part of the divine. He was not just king anymore. He was the chosen one, the speaker for the sun. Maybe even the sun itself. His queen, Nefertiti, stood beside him in this vision. Unlike other queens, she was shown as powerful and active, making offerings, standing with the king, and sometimes even striking enemies. She was more than a wife. She was a partner in his mission. Together, they ruled not just as leaders, but as holy figures. In official writings, Akhenaten claimed that the sun gave him life directly, that Aten's light flowed through him to the people, that only through him could Egyptians speak to the divine. The temples of old gods were shut down. Their names were scratched from stones. Their priests were pushed aside. And in their place stood Akhenaten, both ruler and god, man and myth. But while he saw himself rising toward the heavens, something else was happening below. The people were confused. The nobles were silent. The priests were angry. And far from the glowing light of Aten, shadows were beginning to gather. At first, people thought Akhenaten was just obsessed with the sun. But over time, it became clear this was more than belief. He didn't just worship Aten. He believed he was Aten's living form on earth. In Akhenaten's mind, he wasn't a man serving a god. He was the god's voice, his image, his light. Every temple built in Akhenaten was open to the sky. No roofs, no shadows, just sunlight pouring in. And in the middle of them all stood Akhenaten, arms raised, eyes closed, face to the sun, breathing in the light like air. He began speaking in ways no king had before. He called himself the son of Aten. He wrote poems saying Aten made the world only for him. He said that only through him could people reach the divine. In private letters, workers and officials were told to pray to the king, not just to Aten, but to Akhenaten himself. It was no longer enough to honor the sun. People had to honor the one who carried its light. Soon, the lines between God and man began to blur. Statues of Akhenaten were placed in temples where gods used to be. Songs were written praising his face, his voice, his wisdom. Artists painted him floating in golden rays, arms outstretched like the sun itself. He even began to change how the royal family was shown. Before, pharaohs sat alone in art, serious, powerful, distant. But now, Akhenaten filled walls with images of himself playing with his daughters, kissing his wife, and sitting under Aten's rays as if inside a warm embrace. To modern eyes, it looks sweet, but in ancient Egypt, it was shocking. This was a king who wasn't just ruling. He was turning his family into holy figures. His wife, his daughters, they were now part of the divine circle. Some carvings even show Nefertiti wearing the crown of a pharaoh. And one of their daughters is seen blessing offerings like a priest. It became clear, in Akhenaten's world, there was no space for old gods, old rules, or even old truths. He had created something new. A world of light. A world where he was the sun. But not everyone believed. Behind the glowing temples and golden carvings, whispers began to spread. Priests who had once controlled Egypt's faith were now powerless. Their gods had been erased. Their temples abandoned. Their followers confused. Soldiers, used to strong kings who led them in battle, now followed a ruler who spoke in riddles and refused war. Nobles who once controlled land and trade now waited for orders from a king who spent hours meditating under the sky. And the people, farmers, builders, craftsmen, were struggling. Akhenaten was beautiful, but it had been built too fast. Its walls were thin. The streets, poorly planned. Food was short. The river didn't flood right. And yet the king asked for more temples, more statues, more poems praising Aten. But worst of all, no one else was allowed to pray. Akhenaten banned all personal worship. The people couldn't pray to Aten on their own. They had to go through him. He was the only link between heaven and earth. Without Akhenaten, there was no path to the divine. This was the moment the king crossed a line. Egypt had seen powerful rulers. They had even seen kings call themselves gods after death. But Akhenaten made himself a living god. One who demanded love, worship, and absolute loyalty. Now, not in some afterlife. It was no longer a kingdom. It was a religion. And Akhenaten was its prophet, its king, and its god, all at once. But behind the sunlit walls of Akhenaten, things were beginning to break. The priests waited. The army watched. The people grew restless. And while Akhenaten stared into the sky, believing himself eternal, the world around him was slowly falling apart. The sun still rose over Akhenaten. The temples still stood open. The rays of Aten still shined. But inside the city, things were falling apart. The people were tired. The new city had been built quickly, but not well. Houses were weak. Walls cracked. Crops failed to grow as they once did along the old riverbanks of Thebes. The land was dry. Water was short. There were no temples to the old gods, no familiar prayers. The songs they had sung for generations were gone. Now, they had to praise a god they didn't understand, and a king they couldn't reach. Worse still, there was no help. If your child was sick, you couldn't pray to Isis. If you were afraid, you couldn't call on a moon. And if you tried, you risked punishment. Aten watched all. And Akhenaten was Aten. In the streets, people whispered in secret. Why is Aten silent? Why does the king not help us? But they were afraid to speak too loud. Walls had ears. Spies were everywhere. Meanwhile, outside the city, the empire was shaking. Egypt's borders were once strong. Other kings feared the pharaoh's name. But now, enemies were rising. Hittites in the north. Raids in the east. Tribes moving in from the west. Letters came from allies begging for help. One prince wrote, "My land is falling. Why have you abandoned us?" Another warned, "If you do not send troops, I will lose everything." But Akhenaten didn't respond. Or if he did, his words were strange. Soft, full of light, but empty of action. He sent gold instead of soldiers. He sent prayers instead of swords. Egypt's army waited. Trained. Ready. But the king gave no orders. He was busy with Aten. He was writing hymns. Meditating in sunlight. Walking barefoot through temples with his daughters. In his mind, there was no need for war. Aten would protect them. But Aten was silent. In the old cities, Memphis, Thebes, Heliopolis, anger was rising. The temples there were closed. The priests jobless. The gods forgotten. These were not just religious men. They held land, gold, and power. They had supported pharaohs for 1,000 years. And now, they were enemies of the state. So they waited for the king to stumble, waited for the people to turn, waited for the sun to set. In Akhenaten, even the king's own court grew cold. His followers smiled in public, but in private, they grumbled. The nobles missed their old lives. The generals missed battle. The people missed the gods. Even his own family began to fade. One by one, Akhenaten's daughters died. The walls that once showed joy now showed grief. Nefertiti, his beloved queen, vanished from the records. No one knows why. Did she die? Did she rebel? Or did she simply leave? And then, a strange thing happened. A new name appeared beside Akhenaten. Smenkhkare. No one knows who he truly was. A son-in-law, a stranger. But he ruled beside Akhenaten for a short time, and then he too vanished. The cracks had become fractures. The empire was weak. The king was alone. The people were suffering. And Aten, the god of light, had no answers. Soon, even the sun would set on Akhenaten's dream. No one saw the moment it ended. Akhenaten, the living spirit of Aten, died quietly. There was no great parade. No golden tomb found. Just silence. Some say he died in his palace, alone. Others believe he was buried quickly, far from the Valley of the Kings. His body was never found. His name almost wasn't either, because after his death, they tried to erase him. Stone by stone, they chiseled away his memory. His face scratched off the walls. His name removed from lists of kings. His temples torn down. His city abandoned. The gods had returned. A moon, once called a lie, now rose higher than ever. His priests marched back to power. His temples rang with chants again. The old gods were angry, and they were back. And the boy who followed Akhenaten, he didn't speak of Aten. He was young, just a child. His name, Tutankhaten. But soon, he changed it to Tutankhamen, a name that honored a moon, not Aten. He reopened the temples, brought back the priests, restored the old ways. He was loved for it. But behind him, the men who had waited, the generals, the priests, the old nobles, they moved the pieces. Tutankhamen may have worn the crown, but others pulled the strings. What happened to Akhenaten, the shining city? It died. The palaces fell to dust. The statues crumbled. The sunlight dimmed. People left it behind like a bad dream. Stones from its temples were taken, reused in new buildings, as if to bury the past within the walls of the present. The dream was over. For years, no one spoke of Akhenaten. He had been pharaoh, but also a ghost. His name cursed. His god forgotten. It was as if he never existed. And yet, something strange remained. Not in the temples, not in the tombs, but in the story. A man who thought he was divine. A king who ruled with no weapons, only light. A god who spoke through one man's lips. No other pharaoh dared try what he did again. He had changed too much, broken too many rules, shaken the ground under the gods. And the gods, in return, had crushed his legacy. But for a moment, just a short moment, he had ruled Egypt not with fear, but with belief. Not with armies, but with a dream. And the world had not been ready. For over 3,000 years, Akhenaten lay forgotten. No songs praised him. No statues stood tall. No one whispered his name in prayers. Egypt had wiped him from its memory like a mistake that should never have happened. But history has a strange way of remembering what it once tried to forget. In the late 19th century, European archaeologists stumbled across strange ruins in the desert. They didn't match anything else from ancient Egypt. The art was different, the carvings odd, the faces long and soft, and everywhere, the sun. Then they found the name. Not Ramses, not Thutmose, but something unfamiliar. Akhenaten. Who was this king? Why was his city lost? Why did no one talk about him? The mystery sparked a fire. Historians dug deeper. And what they found was astonishing, a radical, A dreamer. A man who believed he was the only voice of a god no one else could see. A man who ruled like no other. He rewrote religion, changed art, shattered traditions, and vanished. Even stranger, his son was the most famous pharaoh ever found, Tutankhamun, the boy king whose golden mask lies in museums and on postcards. But Akhenaten, still a shadow. Some call him the first monotheist in history, the man who may have influenced later beliefs in one god. Others say he was mad, a tyrant who made people suffer to feed his ego. No one agrees. But maybe that's the point. Akhenaten doesn't fit in a box. He wasn't just a king. He wasn't just a priest. He wasn't just a father. He was something else. Something in between. A bridge between belief and obsession. His god didn't survive. His city turned to dust. His legacy was buried. But now, when we speak of strange kings, when we talk about power, religion, and the danger of worship without question, his name returns. Not as a hero, not as a villain, but as a warning. What happens when a man believes he is a god? What happens when no one can say no? Akhenaten left us no answers. Only silence, sunbeams, and broken statues. And maybe that's enough. If this story made you curious, hit the like button. It helps us bring more hidden history to life. Let us know in the comments what you think. Was Akhenaten a visionary, or just another mad king? And don't forget to subscribe for more dark and mysterious tales from the past. There's always more to uncover.